All right, we're live. Welcome, everybody. I am here today with, of course, Frank DiBenedetto and Eric Burendorf. I hope I pronounced your name right.
You got it right.
You just literally told me how to pronounce it, and
it took 4 years to teach him how to say DiBenedetto. So we got to give him some credit here. So.
Hey, look, I couldn't spell my name until I think freshman year of high school, and couldn't pronounce it right until after that, I'm sure. So it's fine.
That's awesome. Well, Eric, you talk. I'm going to let you introduce yourself to everybody so that they know who you are.
Sure. Eric Bjorndorf. I own an IT company, Evernet, in the lower New England area, based out of Hartford and Greenwich, Connecticut. Been doing that for a lot of years, 15 years or so. And that's me. And
you are a pilot, which is really cool.
Oh my God. When my wife sees this, she's going to laugh hysterically. So there's a thing that, that with pilots, it's like, how long does it take before a pilot tells somebody new that he's a pilot, right? But you took care of that for me. But yeah, I am a pilot, a private pilot. A lot of people, a lot of normals, as I call them, you tell them you're a pilot and they immediately think you're driving the buses in the sky. But no, it's I am a light private pilot, a licensed private pilot. So essentially recreation. I can use it for business personally, but I can't be hired to fly other people.
If I wanted to hire you to fly over, say, a specific spot in New Jersey and drop like manure on someone, could you do that? Like a drone?
Yeah, I would have to pay for some of the gas in order for that to be lawful, I think.
This is going a lot better than I thought it was going to be headed, because I thought you were going to tell me, Eric, that your wife didn't know you were a pilot, and Mike just on Facebook that. So this is significantly better than I thought the path we were about to go down. So.
Oh no, her and my girls absolutely love flying with me, and in fact, you would think that they like to fly more than I do, but they're always
a lot of MSPs that. It seems like the owners took up, flying. Pretty cool. I could probably name
really?
off the top of my head that I know.
Yeah, I mean, my grandfather was a naval pilot. My dad grew up flying in my grandfather's Cessna. I grew up. My dad, was like motorcycles, so we were a motorcycling family. And then when I started my own family, I had 5 motorcycles in the garage. And I don't know if I want to tell this story or not, but I took my oldest daughter for a ride with my wife, so she was sandwiched in between me and my wife on my Harley. And, I realized it's socially unpopular, but not technically illegal. So we just did a little lap around town. And of course we stopped next to a cop at a stoplight, and he did one of these, and he like rolled down the window. He's like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "Well, and he's like, "Get home." And I'm like, "All right." So after that, I was like, you can't really bring a family on motorcycles. So that summer, I actually liquidated all of them and started flying.
Bought a plane.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, it's good to see that. We're friends on Facebook, so I keep in touch with you, and I connected on LinkedIn. And I always enjoy watching, seeing the pictures from the beautiful pictures that you take.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a pretty open book on the social side of things. And what I started doing recently was I started posting personal stuff on LinkedIn, because when I spend some time on LinkedIn and I see people post, it gets so stodgy, it gets so tiring seeing people self-promote professionally, and the few people that go out there and kind of put themselves out personally, I think I appreciate that, and I feel like I value those contributions. I mean, we all have to promote business and ourselves professionally and stuff on that channel, but I like when I see people saying like, "Hey, here's a little bit of me," rather than business me. And so that's kind of what I've been doing lately, is rather than just throw a suit and tie on and, say how great I am professionally, I just like to say, like, this is also who I am as a person,
I love it.
Eric, how long have you been using audit for? Just curious.
So I think you guys first showed up on my radar, I think at least a year, right, Mike, before I actually signed up.
Yeah. Well, the backstory of that is, you kind of, I don't remember how we met. Maybe we met at an event, or you came into our list somehow, but I noticed you were like, 40 minutes away from me here in Connecticut.
That's right. You're in Connecticut?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're in Connecticut too. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm south of you. And
I think I solicited you guys because I usually I'm a thick-headed person sometimes, and I feel like I'm always late to the party. And like when like I started liking Dave Matthews Band when like it was passe and tacky, like I was like 3 years late to Dave,
And Nickelback.
Huh?
And Nickelback too.
Yeah, exactly. Like I'm like, oh, Nickelback's this great band, and then everybody's like, oh, not so much. So when I started my my IT company, when we were an ITSP, IT service provider, and then of course the managed service model kind of got was coming around and things like that. So I don't know if we use Autotask, owned by Datto, for example, and before we started using Autotask in 2013. And I believe they started the company in 2006. I started my company in 2007. I was running my IT company out of Outlook. If you can imagine, we were storing like user, passwords in the notes section of company contact cards, like some of the stuff we were doing. So I have to suffer from a problem before I look for the solution, and I guess that's intuitive in most part, but I look around and I feel like there's so many smarter people than me doing smarter things, or they're getting it before me, but one way or the other, I eventually get it and I come around. So when we started doing our quarterly business reviews, started promoting those, started understanding internally the value of them to our clients. The problem is that it's hard for me to sell something to my clients unless I buy into it, unless I see the value in it, not just because my industry peers are doing it. And I think that's also a lot of my experience too, is my industry peers start doing things before I understand why they're doing it or why there's value to doing it. So at any rate, long story short, quarterly business review, the concept of QBR, quarterly business reviews, comes around, and I start saying, okay, well, we got to do these audits, we got to do information gathering. We had been in the practice by the time I found you guys, to having rich information collection and storage, and we were starting to report on it and things like that. But when I found you guys, I couldn't get my mind wrapped around the paradigm. And I don't know if this is inside baseball, so cut this out if it is in post, Mike. But I didn't originally, I couldn't, when I first met Mike and Audit, I didn't get my mind around the paradigm of the sales presentation tool. And I think you guys still suffer. I see from time to time in the IT business owners group on Facebook and some other channels, I think other people also don't get that, because we're so stuck in the network reporting tools, like I don't know if it's Auvik or Rapid Fire and things like that. So when I first looked at your demo, I was like, where's the data gathering agent that I install on the server? You know what I mean? And poor Mike, I think it was Mike that was like, it's not how this works, and my brain was like hitting the brick wall, and that's what sometimes happens. I'm thick like that. So anyways, I don't mean to drone on. So I was looking for a tool that would help me quantify my clients, what I call the state of the state. You know what I mean? Like where they are, where they should be, where they've come from, that sort of thing, in the context of the services, products and services and support that we provide for them. So anyways, I found you guys, and I let my fingers do the walking through the internet. Found you guys, found Rapid Fire, found some other things like that. Back then, $100 a month or whatever the subscription was, is not an insignificant fee where it's not something that I consider or don't consider. So I wasn't compelled, or I think it was mostly me, like I didn't get the paradigm at the time. So I met Mike, and then I trialed it, and then I kind of moved on. And then I think it was maybe a year or two later, I reconnected with Mike, and I solicited you guys. And I had this problem, which is I needed to quantify the state of the state for my client, and I had to deliver a report on this, and for prospective clients. And then that's when it clicked for me. So again, that's me, like, Nickelback. That was my Nickelback moment. So
what was that experience like the first time you used the report? Like, how did it? Obviously, you're still with us, so it must have been positive. But tell me about the first time you used it and what the outcome was.
Well, so like once I had the aha moment, so I'm the world's worst salesperson. I can only sell things that I believe in, that I understand, that I see that bring value to my clients. So once I had that aha moment, I saw the power that I could leverage from the tool. And then I did my first one with my client. It was in person. We were in their conference room, and I saw this document that I was creating for them that was bringing value to them and strengthening my relationship with them. And it was just like, I mean, you can't, of course you can put a price on anything, but that's where it was that aha moment with that experience with seeing the clients. It's not that they were impressed because, like IT, I don't know what clients you guys have, but none of the executives or business managers that I interface with, like, get real excited about the work that we do together per se. We're like the water company for them. You know what I mean? Like, they want to open the tap and have water come out. You know what I mean? They want to like sit down at their computers and just have it work. They don't want to like geek out with me on like reports and ticket counts and SLAs and success rates and failures. They just want to know, like, how many red blocks do I have? How much is it going to cost me to get to the green blocks? And then, and when their eyes glaze over, or they, check their watch twice in 5 minutes, that's when, I start talking faster and I start wrapping things up. But during the first meeting, they didn't have, I'm sorry?
I said, you know how to sell. That's exactly what I do.
Yeah. But during the first meeting, bringing in the audit report, I had less of that, like, I could tell there was less dread, and I hate to say that's the measure of success, but they had less dread when they looked at the report. They go, because the report is very digestible for a layperson, which is really, you guys really hit it out of the park with that. So yeah, I mean, it's a great tool. If you ask the poor folks at Datto community, I have something to say about everything. So I'm Mr. Feedback. My staff laugh at me because when a software doesn't do what you intuitively expect it to do, or it's falling short of doing something that could bring huge value to our workflows, I'm always like, feature requests, get those feature requests, because the post Steve Ballmer, Bill Gates era, something changed in software development, and I'm probably preaching to the choir, but, software these days is user driven now. The software, you guys remember, we would just get the new version, and that's what the developers told us we wanted. You know what I mean? And we would say, thank you, sir, we may have another. But now you guys, the software development, a good software house really partners with their community, and brings the tool that the community needs and wants. And so, I'm looking forward. Hopefully, one day you guys will integrate with Autotask and the PSA leaders out there. It'd be great to just have that data flow right into that.
It's coming. I was just testing it the other day, actually.
That's awesome. I always complain to Datto because, or Autotask, because their name is somehow a misnomer. As autotasky as they think they are, there's some things that are not so auto. Like you can't create a ticket from their workflow engine, for example, which seems like, you know, blows my mind. But for you guys, for example, like you guys should run the you know, you guys should run that scheduler. You guys should have a scheduler, right? And then we should be able to have somehow, you know, subscribe certain accounts to QBRs, and you guys have a scheduler. And if it launched the ticket, and then we could use Autotask's workflow engine to route that to the respective resource, then, you know, that's huge value there. So I just need to get.
We were testing that too. There's a whole QBR calendar built in, scheduler, the ability to pull the contract value and to set up a business review schedule. So if you say, hey, if it's under $1,000 agreement value, then we want to do an annual review. If it's between 1,000 and 2,500, we're going to do quarter or semi-annually, right? So cool. That way you set up your whatever your default schedule is, and then when you pull the auditee in from the PSA, ConnectWise, or Autotask, and soon Kaseya, you'll be able to apply that QBR logic automatically, and it'll set up the business reviews for you, and then it'll send reminders. You'll be able to see them on the calendar. You'll be able to associate the appointment with the business review, be able to add notes to the audit items, to the auditee, and the audit. So you'll be able to tie all the notes back into that.
Cool.
Real nice and neat. So yeah, we're testing all the functionality. It's almost completed. We're just doing some.
That's cool. Are you guys still struggling with conveying the message to future prospective customers that it's not a rapid fire tool and information gatherer reporter, or are you guys finding that to be a challenge anymore?
I don't think so. I think that, you know, the only reason why it was a challenge in the beginning was because we created a software category that didn't exist.
Right.
So there was an education process for us to say, no, we're not a data collection tool, and we never set out to replace a rapid fire or a line guard or an AUVIC. We were the presentation layer that was missing. I had all the tools, right? I had more tools than I knew what to do with. My problem was all these data points coming at me from all over, some sourced manually. Like there's nothing that, in my mind, in my opinion, that replaces a good old discovery session with a prospect, because you're building that rapport. And I believe that's when the sale is made, right? All the tools you use to gather all the data, that's kind of a formality that we have to go through. I believe you do a better job forensically after they're your client, right? So the challenge is how do I source enough things initially without putting them through some crazy forensic process, and then how do you present? So you touched on like, what do we do to be able to present to them in such a way where they're actually leaning forward and they want to know, like, what does this mean, right? Capture that current state. And then, and only then, can you show them, hey, this is the future state, and we can close that gap. This is what it's going to take. So that's what we struggled with. So the education process for us was around teaching that concept, right? We said right from day one, you have all the data collection tools that you could possibly need. You don't need another agent to install out there. What you need is some way to simply sell all this stuff. And every year that's gone by, it's only gotten more complicated. There's a new widget, a service, a gadget. You know, I can remember off the top of my head, in 4 short years, we didn't have dark web monitoring. Now we do in a bunch of formats. We didn't have security awareness training. Now we do in multiples, right? We didn't have the managed threat detections like the Huntresses of the world. That didn't exist. We didn't have Threat Locker or Blackpoint, like all these. So it's only getting more complicated. Datto has added a ton of new things, SaaS data protection. Like we weren't doing cloud to cloud backup 5 years ago. So how do you sell all these different things, or how do you show a prospect that, hey, you're not doing this, right? Without confusing them, using battle cards and all that. So that's really what
Right.
it's been for us. So I think I can tell you, Michael probably agree. A lot of vendors, especially the ones that we love, are channel only, right? Because they don't sell direct, like not like Dell, right? So
Right.
Datto is a perfect example. So if they don't buy a Datto from you, they're never going to Amazon and buying it, direct and bypassing us as the MSP. So we are right in the middle of the supply chain, vendor to MSP to the end consumer. So what we started to do is we over the years have gotten the attention of more and more vendors who have helped peddle our message, and I think that's helped us change, the education side of it to being where it wasn't like one MSP at a time. Now it's one vendor at a time, and the vendor tells all their partners, and the vendor might have 500 or 1,000 or a couple thousand MSPs, right? So our message is being told at a grander scale, and I think it's been easier for us to
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you hit on the head.
what we do and where the value is and where we fit.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and that's when you ask that question, Eric, that's always was the first. And I'm going to talk more. I'm going to bring it back to what our conversation is. Right, our conversation topic has been objections, and it's anytime a person has a question in the process, it's an objection, right? And people, I think, and me and you had this conversation. I love the way you handle objections, Eric. You kind of said you don't handle them because you're talking about them before they come up. And that's the trick with, objections are kind of like a dirty word, right? Or people get scared of the idea of dealing with objections. But all an objection is a question that somebody has, and you can answer it in a couple different ways. Like when I used to go to shows all the time, and in the early days, and people would ask exactly what you asked is, so are you guys like rapid fire? It was the most question we'd always get. And the first thing I would do is just say, why do you ask? And I'd look for more information to understand why they're asking that question. Because a lot of times people are, I guess if you're not prepared for that question, or you're not thinking about it from a sales perspective, you might think, well, this person's here because they think we're the competitor to rapid fire. They want us to get rid of it, but really they use rapid fire and they don't want to have to stop using rapid fire. They want to know if this works with it. So it's understanding why people are asking it, and then telling the story, which is what Frank just did. Frank knows that, talked about how we created that category, and he's got it really dialed into on what it means from a value and benefit perspective as opposed to a feature perspective. So that was a great example of dealing with objections. So.
Yeah. I mean, when you asked me to be on the show with you guys, the biggest thing in life I think I dislike is when people waste my time. Time is the one thing that you can't get more of. Everybody knows that. And the exchange of, I very rarely exchange my time for money even these days, personally. So I didn't want to waste you guys' time. So when you asked me how I deal with objections, my answer to you, Mike, was I don't do a hard sale. When we have a new prospective client reach out to us, it's because they knew that they had a need that we may or very likely can solve. So when I've been doing this for so long that when I present, and I don't want to bore you guys with some of that history, but I did a major transformation of the company. Basically within the last 3 years, where we basically said that we know what our clients need. The best client for us is the client who trusts and values us to deliver that for them, rather than the client who wants to spar with us on best practices and any sort of knowledge they purport to bring to the table, if that makes any sense. So we do sell things, but I would say we're not salespeople. We're not. I always make the joke. I don't know where I heard it, but we're not selling ketchup popsicles to Eskimos here. You know what I mean? We're selling the things that that bring value and capital to our clients. So when you asked, we're talking about objections today, if a client or prospective client has a question, I love educating my clients. Not that I like to be the know-it-all, because I'm certainly fine with learning from other people too. But if I get the objection, like I had a prospect reach out to me this week, and she runs a pretty good accounting firm across multiple states. She has a West Coast presence and East Coast presence, and she started talking to me about rolling out a robust data sharing platform. And of course, there's so many to choose from. I mean, we're vendor agnostic, but we have standardized on the Office 365 suite, because I think the value is there's huge value there. So then we go down this rabbit hole. I said, where's your email hosted? Where's your, are you using Teams for communication? SharePoint data library, collaborating with Office Word, that sort of hosted Word and things like that. And so then it just kind of devolved into like this, like, well, I don't, the opinions about companies and things like that. I said, so I'm like, you tell me what system you want us to deploy, we'll deploy for you. If you're asking me, what system we think brings you the most value and capital to your business, this is the one we think, So objections, I don't really, I just don't spend a lot of time on hard objections, because I'm not the hard sale, you know what I mean? If that makes any sense. So I just was afraid that I didn't want to waste your time today in this, and if talking about it in that context, I guess, if that makes sense.
Oh, not at all. And everybody deals with objections. You deal with them even if you don't think you do, because if you're not getting them, then you're a couple reasons, right? Like, number one, you're either the lowest price solution, which I don't think you are,
No.
Or you are answering them before they ask them, which is
right.
what you want to do.
Right.
So awesome.
Good stuff.
Yeah. So are you and you've integrated audit into your process. How has, with COVID and everything, have you been out there doing a lot of sales presentations? How's that going for you?
Not a single in-person meeting and presentation since March.
Well, virtual. Have you been doing any virtual?
Yeah, virtual. Yeah, we've been delivering the QBRs virtually, and that has been a really positive experience. We started rolling out our security awareness training virtually, and save for a few old fuddy-duddies and carryovers. It's just amazing that I decentralized our company. Frank, do you guys still have a central office that people move their bodies to at 8 a.m. every day and then leave at 7?
We do. I've only been there about 6 times in 6 months. I went there actually I went there earlier this week to make sure it was still standing. But yeah,
that's amazing. So I mean, listen, we had an office in Hartford for when we first started, and I commuted into Hartford in traffic, and then we just moved and then I got tired of driving into the city every morning, and then I moved us to a suburb in Rocky Hill, south of Hartford, for the next 10 years or so. And I was, again, starting a family and wanting to be more available to my family. So I basically wanted to work from home, and I said to the staff in 2017, all the technical resources were in the field, 80% of the time, 50, 60, 70, 80% of the time anyways. And of course, as a company, we were leveraging remote work from home tools and processes to deal with snow days and superstorms, this and that. So it was really just some admin staff that were really commuting. So anyways, in summer of 2017, I put it to the staff. I said, how do you guys feel about working from home exclusively? And all but 2 people were like, yeah, hell yeah. And so I said, okay. So I locked the office that June, and then everybody worked from home. Of course, we were all ready for it. The two people that didn't like it soon exited the organization on their own volition. They were not pushed or asked to leave. It didn't fit with the culture that they valued anymore. And we have since replaced them with people who do value the culture. So in March of COVID, 2020, we were all scared, very sad for people who were losing, businesses and family members. But it was a little hard to not, feel a little smug that we were, prepared. We were incredibly prepared, because by 2020 we were well, prepared for work from home. So I'm sorry, I always lead with a huge backstory when I just tell you one little piece. I'm sorry, it's a problem. Point being is, when we started delivering QBRs, security training, remotely through Zoom, and we actually use Teams. Teams is playing catch up with Zoom to do the session lists or user lists, connections and meetings and things. But seeing the novelty in the look in my clients' eyes, was charming. Of course, we knew that we could have done this for years. You know what I mean?
Right.
But the presentation lends itself very well. The product that you guys have, Audit IT, lends itself very well to remote presentation. So that's been nice.
Yeah, we've got to be able to pivot, I think. And I know for me, I'm not sure if you found this, Eric, but like doing business reviews was dreadful, because I could tell the client didn't enjoy it. They felt like no matter what I came in with, it was a reason for me to sell something to them. And we hear that from a lot of MSPs, who they kind of talk about the process like it's not something that they want to get involved with or really do. And I think it's because of what they've done in the past, right? Whoever decided to teach MSPs to show up with mountains of ticket reports and tech data, I think really did them a disservice, because the clients, you mentioned it, like they want the water, right? They don't need to know how the plumbing's made or what the water company's doing to get the water there. They just know they pay and they turn it on and it works. I think that the first time we started using this report format in business reviews, I could tell you clients would say to me, why weren't we using this all along? And I didn't want to tell them because I had to create it because it didn't exist. But that was some of the original validation that what we were doing and that report was the right thing. And I was client number one for this. I was the one who tested it. But you fast forward today, and I'm in a position, Mike points this out all the time, I'm in a position where I know within reason, like what my client's threshold is. Like if I think something's important to roll out, but I can't get to them because, we have about 91 clients that pay us MRR every month. So as we do these reviews, it's just physically impossible, for our team to get to every one of them. Maybe it might take, let's say, 4 to 6 months to go through an entire, 90 some odd clients. Well, imagine you're like the client in month 6 that you didn't know about this stuff for 5 months. And you're like, you didn't tell me that you were using a product like Threat Locker or something, right? So what I'll do many times is I'll add it right onto their bill. So it might add $2-3 a month to like a managed workstation. And then if they question it, it gives me an opportunity to say, well, let me show you what your business review, this was going to be red.
Right.
I can remove it. It's green now. I can remove it and turn it back red, and your bill will adjust by $60 for the month. And they're like, no. And so I don't know if this falls into the category of, it's better to beg for forgiveness and ask permission. But this is because I have been doing this process with clients for a period of time that the client gets used to it. So if I show up and say, hey, I haven't seen you in 6 months, but this alarm's been going off, it's been red, and I just didn't get a chance to tell you about it, they would look at me like that's yeah, you're negligent. Exactly. Yeah. So, and then of course, what do they say to you? Well, how much is it?
Yeah.
Oh, that's $3 a month. You have, 20 workstations. It would have been $60 a month. They're like,
Frank, one of the reasons why I like you is I feel like you're like a brother in the foxhole with me. You know what I mean? Like when I view the various conversations that are happening among our colleagues in various forums, Facebook has a few groups for the IT business owners and whatnot, and I see some of the business owners there that really tread lightly on that billing relationship with their clients. I mean, I used to do that. I mean, Jesus, I think for the first 8 to 10 years I was in business, I never raised my rates. My costs were going up, but I never raised my rates. And this was what I was telling you guys earlier in the conversation, that about 3 years ago, maybe four, I mean, almost out of necessity, I almost went bankrupt because you could make a couple million a year, but if you're spending exactly what you're making or $1 more, it's why you're not making any money. So why do it? So the decision we made was to know who we are and know where our value proposition was to our clients, and also, like, it's very important what you described. The trust relationship that we build with our clients is what allows us to do what you described, right? So if we were to pussyfoot around and not move the needle because we were afraid of that conversation, we would actually be doing our client a disservice, right? So, but that really takes, I mean, for me, I don't want to speak for you. For me, it took a lot of years of doing business to realize that sometimes the right thing to do can be a painful thing to do. But then what I also realized is if you keep doing the right thing, you will continue to curate clients and when I say partner, clients who partner with you in their needs, so and then they will see that you were acting in their best interest. That $2 or $3 a month. I mean, in our case, we had to right size a few contracts over the past 24 months that amounted to considerable increases to a couple clients. Increases, they won't see that relative increase again because we've since right sized the contracts. But we had we had to risk alienating ourselves from a number of clients because we finally figured out what our cost burdens were, what our market position was. But yeah, I mean, to your point, I don't know, I'm trailing off again.
But don't you think though that, like, the realization that you had was you finally realizing that you were inside of your own head? Because I think that many of us, not being salespeople. Like, a lot of MSPs are not, hey, we started this and I hired 3 salespeople. It's usually the tech owner, right?
Right.
And we don't love selling. And I'm like you, I don't want the hard sell. You get inside of your head, you know what? I really don't want to go to my client and tell them I'm going to raise their rates by $5 a month during COVID. And,
Right.
So I'm not going to do it. I did exactly that. And on April 1st, we raised our rates because I added two products, Huntress and Third Wall, into my stack. And I did it. I had been looking at it, but I also did it because I knew everyone was going to scatter and be remote. And I want to make sure my clients are protected. So I got out of my head. But I think what this tool allows you to do is you could help the client make a educated buying decision without it making feel like you're selling them or you feel like you're selling them, right? If you show up and, like, another example, I have a few clients that have a lot of users and I know their email signatures are all crazy, right? So I identified, hey, I can make like $1 a month by doing Office 365 automated email signatures. Real easy, right? There's a cool value add there. So I throw that in. It's not red, it's not critical, but I throw it in there as yellow.
Right.
And in a business review setting, when you're this close from the finish line, so if you're at like a 99 and your goal is to get to 100, and all of a sudden it clicks down to a 97, you are highly motivated to do whatever it would take to get you to that 100, right? And it's psychological. So somebody's like, wow, that makes great sense. It's really cool. And I always say I'm a wizard at getting the client to pay for stuff that's good for them and makes it easier for me to do my job, right? and I make $1 or something doing it, right? So that's what I like. That's what Audit allows me to do. It's actually fun. I say, hey, you got 60 people in your company. Your signatures are like a mess. How do you guys handle that? Where you just tell everybody like, hey, here's the logo and emails and stuff. And all of a sudden they're like, wow, this is awesome. It's easy for our team to do. And one thing, Mike and I talked about, like, how many endpoints do you support right now through Autotask?
We are, I would say, over 1,000, but less than 2,000.
All right. So let's call it 1,500, right? You could find something that if you rolled out to every endpoint and you made just $1, you just netted an extra $1,500 a month, right?
Right.
And so if you only have, 100 endpoints, maybe the math isn't as exciting. But if you're becoming and you're at a more mature level, and I think that the MSPs that do really well with audit probably have 1,000 to 2,000 endpoints and more. But I think that's probably like a sweet spot MSP. It works really well because you could play that game all day long where you are finding a product that's a benefit to the client that helps you do a better job as the MSP. And you're going to make $1 or some multiple of that at the end. And you do that across the base of clients, which is why the reviews are important because you're selling into that base. Right, who else loves this? The vendors love it, right? Because the vendors like, holy cow. All of a sudden, like if you're Huntress, you're like, how did that guy sell, 1,500 endpoints in 1 month when it takes our other partners 2 years to do that? Because you're selling it like one endpoint at a time.
Right.
I'm like, no, we're going to get this out there right now. And again, that's some of the mentality that we teach and employ. And as more MSPs understand that, what they do is they stop coming off of how do you get the data in there, right? Well, that's why you get paid as the MSP, because you're smart. You're going to put the data in there, right? The data itself starts to become less important of the focus. And what we're doing is empowering you as the MSP to do a better job to take care of that client. And who ultimately benefits? The client. So you said a brother in the foxhole, and I love that. And here's the reason why. When or in the early days before audit, I would go in to a prospect, and you'll probably agree with this. Our best prospects are some other MSP's client, right? Because they're already paying somebody monthly. Right. So we don't have to fight hey, I pay $0 now. Now you should pay me $2,000, right? So they're already paying somebody. So I would go in and they'd be showing me things. And I would be so disappointed thinking that one of my brothers, right, in the foxhole is this is how you left this, right? And that prospect has no idea. Clearly we're there. They have some problems, but usually they have no idea
how bad it is.
And then I would leave and I would think to myself, why is that? Is it because there's no good products and services in our industry? Of course not, right? We're flooded with it. So what's the problem? Clearly this guy wants to buy something. That's why I'm there and I'm doing the audit. So what's the issue? The issue is the MSP isn't good at selling or effective at selling. So
it's not, honestly, sometimes I feel like it's like the opposite. I feel like sometimes they're better at selling than organizing the delivery of the solutions.
Maybe, but either way, what's happening is the client isn't buying, right? And who suffers at the end is that client. Like at the end of the day, I go, well, if I don't get your business, I'm not going to go out of business because I don't get a $2,000 a month client. I think, but you could go out of business because you have no idea. You don't know what you don't know. So look, when we came back, we said, and that's how we came up with the name of this podcast too, Elevating IT. It was if we empowered the MSP to be in a better position to sell and allow their client to make a buying decision, those clients would be buying those products and services that they need. And they're the ones who are ultimately the beneficiary of it, right?
Right, yeah.
And so, if Datto has a backup product and we fail to sell that to our client, they say no. When there is a problem, who suffers? Well, Datto's like, yeah, I missed out on some margin and we missed out on some money. But who's really stuck is the client that didn't buy it because they didn't understand it or maybe your presentation didn't work. So that's kind of how, we teach this and why we're passionate, because I like to be able to elevate the quality of IT by empowering MSPs like yours to be able to sell better.
That's where my comment was rooted in that, because it's nice to when I first started this, the start of the company, it was you never spoke to a competitor, you never collaborated with a competitor, and it was very standoffish. I never liked that about our industry. I even thought so much of starting an association back in the early 2000s, but I just was busy running my own company. But I joined a peer group a number of years ago. I don't want to give him free advertisement, but you probably know who he is. He runs peer groups, great guy, great groups. And it was so nice. It was a breath of fresh air to see other people who were technically competitors, but were brothers in arms, if you will, that could be collaborators. So my hat's off to you that you're running an IT, successful MSP IT company delivering great products. But of course, who better to be positioned to build a great tool that will facilitate that for than you. So
yeah, we're in the trenches, and there's a model there too. I mean, I didn't set out. This wasn't my my original mission. My model was selfish. Was to help me sell.
I actually before I joined before I signed on with Autotask in the early 2000s, I was like, I got to build my own tool. I got to build my own database. I got to get out of Outlook. I even use other products from other that serve other industries. So I give you kudos to that for doing that too. It must have been a heavy lift.
I remember, in the beginning, in like the first year, we were trying to get it out there, and Mike used to call them Frank deals. I'd be practically giving it away, and a bunch of them were local MSPs in New Jersey. And Mike's like, "You're crazy! Like, what are you doing?" And I said, I want to see, the industry just be successful with this. And, I said, if I was in competition, I would just tell Mom them that created it. So you should go with me. But
hey, they speculate that Microsoft took off because they were so easily pirated, so you got to get it out. You got to get in people's hands. You got to show the value, right? I mean, it's all about showing value. If you show the value, I mean, look at me. I mean, I eventually signed up for the product. I'm going to keep submitting my feature requests to you guys.
Yeah,
keep them coming.
I mean, it's already shown value, and it's a great tool. I'm happy you guys exist, and I hope the development stays with it. If you ever need any feedback, let me know.
Well, thanks, Eric, and thank you guys for thank you for coming on, Eric. First of all, this was great. This was I think he was Eric's the first guest we've had on the show.
Hey, I'll take the benchmark. If you want me to be a recurring guest, I'm always happy to talk about myself. So that's a joke. That was a joke. But yeah, I've always been interested. I keep kicking. I was telling you, Mike. I've been kicking the idea around of starting a channel, starting a podcast. I mean, I like talking about business and our trade and technology. I love talking about those things, but I'm not much of an audio video geek, so doing studios and intros and outros, I'm just not sure I have the mind for that. But we'll know. If you ever need me to come around again, be happy to do it.
Appreciate it. Thank you for being here. Thanks, Frank, and everybody. We'll see you on the next episode of the Elevating IT podcast and the weekly sales wrap.
Take care, guys. Nice meeting you, Frank.
Likewise. Thanks, Eric. Thanks, Mike. Have a good weekend.